Are you guilty of holding a grudge or hanging on to negative experiences? If so, this is your reminder to let go. Welcome to Em.Powercoaching. Em.Powercoaching combines mental and physical fitness to help you connect the dots to unveil a more confident, energized and empowered version of you. So if you're ready, let's get into today's episode. What's up everyone? So Coach Emma here, and thank you so much for joining me, whether you're a newbie or whether you're a regular. Always love having you here. So thank you very much for tuning into this podcast, and let's dive on in. So holding grudges, is that you? Or maybe you just really hang on to negative experiences. This is your reminder to let go, and it's really important that you do so for many reasons that we're going to discuss in this podcast. So this podcast topic idea came to me because of my own experience that happened a few weeks ago. I currently live in Bangkok, Thailand, and I'm living in a condo here. And so what that means is that the electricity is generally managed by the building itself. So what that also means is that when we have a problem with the electricity, it comes into the condo. What happened? Well, typical kind of story, to be honest with you. I am definitely one of these people whose phone batteries are always on 10%, if that. Honestly, I want to tell you that it's my phone that's getting old, but I'm probably just on it way too often. I'm on it for work, I'm on it for social, I'm on it for research. I just use it for everything, to be honest with you, because I don't know, to me it's quicker than my laptop. And look, I'm someone who's got 3 laptops, all of which are broken in one way or another. This is the kind of tech gal that I am. So my phone is the one thing that has stayed with me. It's stayed true to me. It has been loyal to me for like the past 5 years. I think even longer than that. And it's just super easy to use. So I tend to just use it more so than my laptop. Hence why the battery is always pretty much on 0. And so I charge it overnight. This is what I do. This is how I make sure that it's ready to go in the morning. I have it on charge overnight. And so there I am, plugging in my phone, 10% battery, putting it on charge so that it does its thing overnight, setting my alarm clocks. I also listen to white noise at night because it is literally the only thing that gets me to sleep, apart from a good audiobook from the Calm app. There are a couple on those at work as well. But anyway, generally I have that going on, so that uses battery. And I have about 3 alarm clocks that I put on because I'm always worried about something going wrong and missing them. Well, what happened this time is that there was some kind of a trip overnight with the electricity that sent everything off, and certain things turned back on and certain things did not. One of those things being my phone charger. So I'm waking up in the morning and the sun is shining and everything is very quiet, which isn't normal. Because usually when I'm waking up, it's still a little bit dark outside. There's like trucks going in and out of the condo lobby areas that I can hear. And everything felt very peaceful. And I woke up naturally. The alarm didn't wake me up. So I'm like, blooming heck, all right, well, this is good. It's very rare that I wake up just by myself. How lovely that is. So I go to look at my phone and it's off. And I'm like, what? Trying to turn it on. And I'm now panicking, so I look at my watch and it is 2 hours after the time that I should have woken up and set my alarm clock for. Now, if this was a day that I wasn't working, I wouldn't really be too bothered. I'd just be like, great, sometimes I do that at the weekends. I'll turn off my alarm clocks and just let my body wake up naturally, just so that I know that it's getting the full top up that it needs when it can. But I had an important meeting that day that I had completely missed, because not only did I wake up late, I woke up so late that the meeting had already happened and finished. So of course, when I finally managed to charge my phone enough to be able to turn it on, I get floods of messages coming through. I am literally in a state of complete and utter panic, stress, distraught, guilt. Everything that you can name is suddenly just pounding into me. My heart is racing. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I'm messaging the people who need to know. I'm saying, I'm so sorry, trying to explain the situation. I'm angry about the electricity tripping and going off and making this happen. And everything is just incredibly negative. And this is how I started my day. Everything is literally just blowing up. Heart racing, stressed out, not in a good mental state whatsoever. Now, there's an element of that which can and cannot be controlled. What cannot be controlled? The situation, what happened, right? That was out of my control. There was literally nothing that I could have done to prevent that from happening, because it was a problem that happened with the building overnight while I was sound asleep, dreaming about cotton candy and fairy tales and all that kind of thing. I had zero control over that. The other thing that I had zero control of is being able to rewind time. I wish I had a burner's watch ever since that show appeared way back when. I don't know, was it the 90s? I think that's when I was watching it. I've always wanted one, and I'm still waiting for someone to come up with this and make this a thing. But unfortunately, I do not have the ability to pause and rewind time. That was out of my control, not making the meeting, not something that I control anymore. So what can I control in this moment? What I can control is how I move forward from this. And this is what's super, super important, and really something to be considering if you're a person who really holds on to these negative things. So when you're holding on to frustration and blame and anger and guilt and all of these really negative emotions after experiencing a very negative experience, all that does for you is it holds you in a negative mental state, and this can really affect your mental well-being, especially if it goes on for a long period of time. There are different ways to approach a situation when it's happened like this. Now, you can just do that. You can keep holding on to the frustration. You can let it last all day. You can go and tell your family, your friends, your clients, everyone about what happened, and you can really hold on to that situation and that experience. And some people might even hold on to it for days or weeks. You know, they might be talking about it with a friend a week later and saying, oh my God, you'll never guess what happened to me last week. You know, and once again, all of that emotion is going to bubble up inside of you again. Or you can choose to let it go, accept what happened, and move on, which is, of course, the best option, right? Because then you're not holding on to all of that negative emotion that is clogging up your brain and affecting your mental well-being. Easier said than done, though. Easier said than done. But it's incredibly important that we do this. And when you're in that moment, you really do just have to sit down and think, what can I control and what can I not control? And you just have to be very realistic about the situation. So for me, for example, in that moment, okay, I couldn't do anything about it. I certainly couldn't find a way to make the meeting because it had already been and happened and finished. So what could I do to somehow find a solution? So that's the first thing to do. Is there a solution, first of all, to the experience and what has happened, right? So for example, let's say if my meeting happened to be online and actually it was gonna or about to start in 20 minutes, right, instead of already being over, then my solution might have been that I just quickly message someone and say, hi, I'm so sorry, something came up this morning, I'm going to be running maybe 10 minutes late, or something like that. Another solution might be, if the meeting has already been over and finished, is there an opportunity to be able to hold another meeting or to get some kind of debrief from someone who was in the meeting and try and catch up on everything that you missed out on that meeting? So the first thing to do is to explore if there are any solutions to that and to try and find a solution first of all. If there is just simply not a solution and there is just no way that you can come back from what has happened, the next thing is, do apologies need to be made, right? do you need to have an honest conversation with someone and make apologies, right? So for me in that moment, I wanted to apologize to everyone who was in that meeting and apologize for not being able to show my face and show up. And so it could be a similar kind of thing for yourself. So if an apology is needed, then explore how you might do that and how you might go about that. And then the next thing to do is to then let go and move on, because nothing else can be done. Simple fact. If you have already acknowledged the situation, accepted what is out of your control and what is in control, done what you can to find a solution and work around that, done all of your apologies if needed, with authenticity, I would hope, then you just got to move on. You just got to cut that cord and move on, because there is nothing else that can be done here now. You have done everything that you need to do. And it sounds so simple, because it really is. The actual process of it is what is challenging, because now you're coming up with all of these things in your head, and you're having to possibly train yourself around being able to let go, right? And being able to do that. If you don't do this though, if you don't look at ways to let go, and if you are holding on to a grudge, then this is just going to heighten stress levels, and heightened stress over time leads to chronic stress, which you may or may not already know is going to affect your mental well-being. It's going to affect your sleep. Okay, a lot of people can experience insomnia from this. You might end up, again, if your mental state's being affected, it might lead you to depression. You might also find that you experience heightened levels of anxiety. It might affect your self-confidence because you're constantly beating yourself up. So you might be challenging whether you have the ability to do something, whether you're good enough or not. It might affect your diet, especially if you're losing sleep. Because as we know, when you're tired, you tend to make poorer choices around your diet. When you're stressed, you tend to make poorer choices around your diet. Stress eating, emotional eating, finding comfort away from the stress that you're feeling, which then in turn is going to have an effect on things like your weight management. So now, if you're not eating the most nutritious foods, it might affect your weight gain, or it might cause the stubborn fat from the chronic stress levels and cortisol levels. And then that in turn is going to make you feel crappy about yourself maybe. And then we're just in this crazy cycle that's really negative and not a good place to be whatsoever. So that's why it's really important that we learn how to let go. And it really does just come down to that discovery of what you can control, and acceptance, of what you can control and what you cannot control. Now, when you're in that moment, when everything's like a little bit heightened and everything's kind of like kicking off, first things first is to address the situation at hand, and if there are other people involved, to address them and to explain the situation and to get everything out in the open. And then the next thing to do is, what can be really useful is to write down what happened, and just to get all of your thoughts out on a piece of paper, especially if you're someone who is living alone and you might not necessarily have anyone that you can kind of just vent to or talk about the situation. So writing it down and doing you could even do a pros and cons list of what are the pros out of this. Okay, well, I got a good lie in and I topped up my energy levels. Right? I'm back on a great sleep schedule. The cons, obviously, are the fact that I missed out on the meeting and it's highly unprofessional. But just go through it anyway. As ridiculous as it sounds, go through it. Because actually what some people find is when they're writing down all of the things that have been affected by this experience, is actually it's not as bad as what they think it might be in the head. So I think it's a really great activity to do that. And then once you've done it, I was just about to say set it on fire, but I really don't think that's a good idea, because if you're doing this inside your home, I don't want to be leading people to having house fires. So what I'm going to say is tear it up, screw it up, throw it in the bin, get rid of it and forget about it. And that activity of tearing it up and throwing it away sometimes acts as a cleansing activity in itself, where it's a kind of letting go. It's like, okay, I've done with it, I'm going to tear it up, it's gone, I'm done. Let's move on. So that can be really, really useful. The other thing is, if you're, again, in the moment and everything's feeling really overwhelming, then doing some breath work at that point just really deep breaths, because if you're really stressed and you're panicking, then chances are your heart rate is going a million miles an hour. And so the best thing to do for that, obviously, is to try and rebalance your nervous system with breath work, because it is fantastic. That's why breath work. So you could do box breathing. Listen, there's so many different ways to do breath work. So whatever works best for you. You can do the 2 inhales in and then 1 long breath out, which Andrew Huberman, neuroscientist, he backs this for a fast response. Or you can do it where you do 4 seconds in, 4 second hold, 8 seconds out, that kind of style. Or you can literally just not worry about counting at all and just really focus on taking deep inhales and big, longer exhales, and just focus on doing that. Whatever breathwork works for you, just do it for as long as you need until you feel that your heart rate is coming back down again and that you're rebalancing your nervous system, and then continue to work through what you need to work through. But it's really important that we do this. I have some friends, and I also have some family members actually, who definitely know how to hold on to a grudge or holding on to a negative experience, something that might have happened to them like 3 months ago, and they'll still bring it up in conversations where they'll be like, oh yeah, and then that time. And a lot of the time it can be blame as well, and it can be blame on others. And I understand, like, if someone's really done you over or caused you, some level of trauma in your life, it's really not as simple as just saying, get over it, move on, go and do some breath work and whatever. It can be a lot more than that. So this is definitely like on a scale kind of discussion that we're having here, because there might be some cases where you're just not able to do that. And I'm not talking about anything that's caused long-term trauma where you might need to seek therapy. This is just for those day-to-day things that happen that cause an absolute shit fire, whatever that means, in the moment, like a missed alarm, or like getting stuck in a traffic jam that's then going to make you late for an appointment. All these kind of things, or your car breaking down on the motorway and then, having a flat tire or something like this, right? These kind of moments are what I'm talking about, where it's really shitty when it happens. It's really shitty when it happens, but we've got to learn to let go, because holding on to stuff like that is not beneficial for your emotional well-being. So if you find that you're someone who does this a lot, then I just really invite you to have a play around with this the next time that something happens, and just to see if you can remember this podcast when it happens, and just going through that activity of, okay, what is in my control, what is out of my control, deal with that, and then move on, cut ties with it, and try and enjoy the rest of your day. If you found this podcast useful, then please definitely pass this on to someone who you think might also benefit from this podcast. And of course, if you can leave a review to let me know about your experience, that is always wonderful. I love hearing about how this podcast influences others. And also, it can really help to be influential for anyone who's looking to get into starting to listen to this podcast. So every bit really does help. You can tag me in your socials if you want. I'm Em.Powercoaching. Also, I love hearing from you guys and hearing about how this podcast might have had some kind of influence in a positive way. Although you can tell me if it's been negative as well. I'm always open to critical feedback. But if it has somehow had an influence on your life, I love hearing about it. So please feel free to come and speak to me over on my socials on Instagram, Em.Powercoaching. Just slide on into my DMs, send me a little message, let's connect. I am also on Facebook, also Em.Powercoaching UK. So you can find me on either of those. But once again, thank you for spending your time with me to be here on this podcast, and I'll tune in with you next time.